So it's fairly pleasant weather. It's exactly not ideal. It's not what Boston weather would be, but
Right, yeah.
there's nothing to complain as such. Yeah. So I mean, staying in Bangalore, I mean, I was lucky. Yeah. I don't know if someone would be in a much different city in India, and they would have perhaps got some challenge. But Bangalore in that sense has been good to me.
Hi, I'm Praneeth, and welcome to my show, The Active Hour, where we discuss health and fitness, nutrition, and the blueprint to enhance your vitality. For today's episode, my guest is Dilip Kumar. He's a tech entrepreneur and an endurance sports admirer. He's an investor where he helped a lot of teams build startups. He's worked across various domains like fintech, digital health, education, and fitness tech. He's currently helping Rain Matter Health build a venture that is going to invest in health and fitness startups. He's also a host of a podcast called The Other Side with Dilip, a 3-time BQ qualifier. Please welcome Dilip to the Active Hour podcast. Hey Dilip, thank you for taking time and coming on to my show. How are you doing?
Hey, Pranit, thank you for having me on your podcast. Pleasure. Look forward to the conversation.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? We need to get into running.
All right. So, a shorter version, longer version, what would you prefer?
Anything's fine. Let's start
Okay.
with how you got into running and fitness and coaching people.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So let me set some context. The coaching bit, what I do is just kind of a side passion project. It's not a full time gig or something. What I do is just my curiosity and my interest to understand human science, human performance. So that's the bit. I'm not like a I mean, I don't have much bandwidth to do a lot of coaching, but it started off more like a side project to
Okay.
explore what I've been. So I'm self-coached for quite a few years now, and therefore I wanted to experiment on others to see whether what I have a philosophy around training, whether that can apply and do good to others. So that's about the coaching. I'm just setting this context so that people don't really uh, tag an identity on me that I'm a kind of a coach of kind. That's about it. But
Mhm.
but
Okay.
beyond that, uh, so I'm based out of Bangalore, India. For your listeners, assuming they must be in spread across different corners of the world. So based in Bangalore, spent most of my career around tech in startups. That's professionally my background. Uh, right now, on the investment side, and I work with a lot of startups and founders. That's what I do professionally.
Okay.
Running started not very long back, probably around 5-6 years back, and I can get into the specifics, but my primary event is, or rather, my primary activity is marathon, long distance running. It started off as more of a reason for me to stay healthy and fit, and I think with years gone by, I kind of took upon it more as a very, a good tool to, of course, stay fit, but also, an anchor to mental health, mental fitness, and of course, trying to explore what more I can do from a human performance point of view. So that's where my introduction to running came in. The introduction was, to stay fit,
Right.
and of course now I train. Yeah, I'll take a pause, but I'll be happy to double click if you want me to go into specifics.
Sure. What made you get into the long distance running? I know you've qualified more than 3 times for the famous BQ. Let's talk a little bit about your training for that. How were you able to achieve it, and how are you able to sustain it?
Oh well, yeah. So Boston qualification is something I've got a few times now. I ran Boston last year, the 2022 edition.
Okay.
Um, I think, like pretty much most amateur runners, Boston qualification and running on Boston is perhaps on top of the bucket list. Most amateur runners dream and strive to get to that milestone. Um, when I started running, that was not on my mind, to be honest. I think the more time you spend in the running sphere, you try to understand the ancillary aspects around that, and you try to, pick how you can get better. And Boston comes across in one of those milestones.
Okay.
Um, Training specifically for Boston qualification for my age category. I mean, just to set some context, my age category qualification is 30.
I think sub
Three
three, right?
No, 305 is
Or
my
three or five.
age
Okay.
category qualification. But I ended up running sub 3 consistently for last few years. That got me qualification to Boston, and then I ran last year.
Okay.
Training is, of course, I mean, you want me to talk specifically about the training?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk a little bit more about your training for Boston and your off-season training.
Yeah, so okay, so I'll go one step backwards. So off season, so I don't race much. I mean, my philosophy is that I usually race not more than two races in a year, two
Okay.
full marathons. Two full marathons would be a peak. Usually, I'm doing just one full marathon. But some instances, some years, I may just end up doing two. But that's about it. And probably I'll do couple half marathons and then few 10Ks. That's pretty much what I do in a racing calendar. But I train throughout the year. Like I said, I like the training aspect more than the racing aspect because I think that requires discipline. Showing up every day in the morning,
Right.
and to getting the work done. There is some level of achievement which is getting unlocked on a periodical basis, and that makes you who you are as a identity, and that kind of defines your character.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I love training more. Racing, of course, I do. Racing is kind of for me a celebration to all your training. It's a means
Mhm.
to celebrate what you've done on your training.
Exactly.
Um,
Okay.
so that's how that's my outlook towards racing. Uh, like I said, I mean, I'm training throughout the year, but I don't train at a very peak level. I try to peak just before the race season comes upon. So maybe around 8 to 10 weeks out from the race, I try to do some specific work for the race, and therefore I try to peak. But otherwise, I'm kind of maintaining my aerobic fitness, just trying to be in shape, just trying to be healthy. That's pretty much I do throughout the year.
Okay.
Boston Marathon in specific, the first time I did first race which helped me qualify for Boston Marathon, I did a sub 3, so I kind of got an idea what it takes to run at that level. And then when I was preparing myself to run the actual Boston race, my plan actually was to just show off and just do a decent effort there. But I ended up doing just under 3 hours in Boston, just around 2:59 change. So that was super good for me because that was not the game plan, but I think things went well. It was a good day, and lucky to have all the variables around racing come in my favor.
Okay.
Uh, Training specifically because I've been doing. I mean, it's sub 3, which means there are a few aspects. One is the mileage, what you do. Second is the recovery, and third is the nutrition bit. So those are the three large components I try to dial down when I'm trying to training. I can go in specifics, but that's largely upon. And then very specifically around Boston, it's famous and infamous about the hills which comes in around 20 miler,
Okay.
around the 32 to 34k kilometer mark. So which means that's a space where your body is empty. You don't have much energy left in, but you still have to climb the inclines and you still have to maintain the pace. So that's both mentally and physically extremely challenging. So that's a bit which you got to train specifically during the training days, and you have to find a way to incorporate if you're someone who's trying to run Boston in particular. So that's pretty much how I kind of had a framework of my Boston training. But yeah, I
Sure.
mean, I can speak specific, but that's largely the framework.
And while training for Boston, how were you able to beat the heat? Especially, I think Bangalore at sometimes can get pretty humid and hot, right? How are you able to train in that season?
Yeah, so Um, so, a couple of things, right? I mean, see, and I get asked this question quite often. Look, there are few things which are in your control, there are few things which are not in your control. So, most
Right.
often, the training conditions could be very different from your racing conditions. You could mimic and you could simulate, some aspects of it, but not entirely. Like, I mean, you perhaps not cannot get the same elevation grade in a training wherever you're training, because the racing, uh, course might not be very specific to where you train. I mean, you could be in a hot
Right.
country or a city, but you might be racing in a fairly cold city. That's one bit. Second, the weather bit, right? I mean, things are beyond control, and Boston again is also kind of notorious from a weather point of view, because it's point to point race, so it's pretty much changes. Uh, every 5 miles to 10 kilometer, it's the weather is changing. You kind of go out of the city and you're coming into the city, and there are chances, and in fact, it's happened many times in the past that at the start line it could be windy, it could be chilly, and halfway through it might be raining, and when you're closer to the finish line it might be hot and humid. So these are conditions which you can't control. If you have the access to mimic and simulate those
Right.
conditions, that's great. But in my case in particular, Bangalore, has been reasonably good. If you compare to the rest of the country, Bangalore has a fairly consistent and stable weather most part of the year.
Okay.
Unlike the northern part of the country, which gets very adverse summers and winters, Bangalore is fairly static in that sense. So it hasn't been much challenge. So Boston Marathon is around April, and much of the training would happen around Jan to March. So it's fairly pleasant weather. It's exactly not ideal. It's not what Boston weather would be, but
Right. Yeah.
there's nothing. But there's nothing to complain as such. Yeah. So I mean, staying in Bangalore, I think. Uh, I mean, I was lucky. Yeah. I don't know if someone would be in a much different city in India, and they would have perhaps got some challenge. But Bangalore in that sense has been good to me.
That's so nice. My brother lives in Bangalore and he absolutely loves it. I never lived in Bangalore, but I like Bangalore. I visited it a couple of times. And I love Karnataka in general. It's very, very dear to me because I was born and raised there. And coming back to Boston, Boston at times can get really cold and chilly, right? Especially the route. I haven't done Boston. The only major marathon in the world that I've done was the New York Full Marathon. I did it in 2019. I did like an 18-week brutal training plan. I was training for sub 4 at that time. I was weighing when I started. I was like probably 180 lbs, but then I did a rigorous 18-week training, and I wanted to reach like 172, 173 pounds, but I ended up being 178. And the mistake that I did was I changed my shoes a couple of weeks before the marathon. So I wasn't able to do sub 4. I ended up doing in 423. And let's talk a little bit about your race. Can you tell us one memorable incident in the marathon, Boston Marathon?
Look, Boston Marathon specific. When I was, trying to get to the city, I was pretty excited because that was my first world major.
Okay.
That was also my first international marathon outside of India. So there was obviously quite a lot of excitement which was building up all through my
Mhm.
training block.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, I've read about it. I've followed a lot of content online about the history and the culture around Boston, which is unlike any other marathon. So
Okay.
there was a lot of excitement, and then when I showed up to the city, it was a very different cultural experience for me. It felt like the entire city is celebrating with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The of course, I mean, you have I think probably around 30-40,000 odd runners, but pretty much the entire city seems to be in that euphoria of celebration, right?
Right.
So that was a very uh, good takeaway, which is unlike what I was seeing in other city marathons I was doing in India, right, where the entire city of Boston comes out on the road, cheers for
Right.
you. So that was a great highlight for me. I mean, the entire distance, right from the start line to the finish line, I just couldn't spot, a single empty space. The entire distance had people out there cheering, people from all different nationalities. There were people who were, kind of cheering and, shouting for their country when they see their fellow countrymen. You could
Right.
spot because, some fellow runners might be, running on a t-shirt or a singlet which could
Right.
have their country name. So, the crowd would cheer for them. They will call out for their name. So I think that was a great experience. I mean, those were the memorable takeaways for me. The fact that how running as an event is celebrated more from a cultural and a tradition point of view than just a sporting event, right? And it's very
Right.
unlike, like I said, I have seen, at least in India, the closest of that level is the Mumbai Marathon, which is going to happen in a few weeks from now in January third week of 24.
Are you training
Uh,
for that?
yeah. So
Oh, good luck.
yeah, thank you. So
Yeah.
I was training for that. I'm not sure if I'll show up to the
Yeah.
start line. I kind of lost quite a bit of my training block,
Okay.
due to injury and travel. So that bit I'm quite not sure yet whether I'll show up. But I'm still continuing the training. But yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, I think that was my memorable takeaway. Like the entire cultural experience of being in a city where the sport is celebrated as a tradition, and of course running with runners from pretty much every corner of the world. These are people from different parts of the world, so everyone is running around you, and yeah, it was a great experience in that sense.
That's so nice to know and very inspiring. You're not a full time coach, but when did this inception start for you that, okay, I want to coach? Because it's one of my dreams too. Like, okay, I want to be a coach at some point, but I'm still not there yet. I would like to know a little bit more about when you got into coaching. How many people do you coach? I know it's a side project of yours, but obviously you're doing it because you're very passionate about it, right?
Sure, yeah. So like I said, coaching started off. So for the past few years now, almost 5 years now, I've been self-coached, which means it's a tough job to do
Yeah.
because, and I do it out of a choice, not that I don't trust anyone, but I started self-guiding and being a self-coach athlete because I was looking at this sport more as a curious student to
Okay.
learn more than just a means to get out and do some work. And therefore, I started reading a lot bit into the science of endurance training, performance science. What the best of the people out there are doing, and try to calibrate what could work for me, and more from a key from an eye of experimenting it. uh, so that was my interest, why I chose to be a self-guided runner, because
Okay.
that gives me a flexibility to experiment, and then see what works and what doesn't work. So that was my starting point, and then for 2 3 years when I started doing this, few friends reached out and say, hey, you've been doing these self experiments. Why don't you include us in your experiments? So that was the
Yeah.
starting point. I mean, I really didn't had a desire, to be very honest, to be a coach. I still don't hold any such desires that I want to be a well-known coach or a sought-out-of coach. Running for me, like I said, remains to be um, a subject which I want to continue learning and be a curious. Want to carry a curious mindset to learn more. I mean,
Right.
anything you want to excel in life, you first need to accept that you are a student for that, right?
Exactly.
And then, of course, there are two ways. You could have a teacher who could, guide you, or you can perhaps go out and learn by yourself. So I've kind of pursued the latter way because it allows me to do a lot of experiments on myself. So, at the end of the day, I can just, blame myself. There's no reason
Right.
I can't put someone to else. So that's how the coaching bit started, and the primary anchor was that since I figured out my own coaching philosophy, I wanted to see whether that could apply on others as well. And is it just one of protocols which seems to be working for me because I was doing fairly good in my races, and I want to see whether the same principle, the same protocol could be applied on others. So that was the initial starting point, and we started with
Yeah.
a couple of friends, and then they got their desired outcomes, and it kind of spiraled from there. But like I said,
Nice.
I do not solicit, I do not put out there that I'm doing a coaching bit. I'm
Okay.
also very choosy in that sense because uh, you know I don't identify myself as someone who is out there to give kudos and
Okay.
to motivate people. I mean, I don't think I'm that person, and I can't do a good job there. And I think my coaching philosophy aligns more with people who are very self committed, who bring in that commitment and who are not craving for kudos and motivation, but they have discipline, they have commitment to do the work, and they want to also come in with an open mind that they are doing experiment.
Right.
There's no guaranteed template that you follow a certain 8, 10, 16 week of training and this will give you a desired outcome. But if you continue to be committed, if you continue to have the consistency, if you continue to be disciplined around your training, you would get a certain desired outcome unless you cross being unlucky and you get injured, but that's part of life. That's what it
Exactly.
is. So that's kind of how my coaching stance and philosophy is. Like I said, I don't have any group. I mostly do 1:1 personal coaching, but it's very restricted. It's like I said, I have a full time job
Yeah.
otherwise that keeps me more than
Occupied.
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so coaching is just a reason for me to stay connected to the sport and from a very different lens. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so nice. And you also like to do occasional biking and swimming, right? Out of these three sports, why do you like running more than biking and swimming?
Yeah, so I mean, see, biking and swimming is more of a occasional indulgence, if I may. I am not an avid cyclist. I'm certainly not a. I can't even call myself a swimmer. I'm just a guy who can perhaps not drown.
Yeah.
So I can just be there in the pool. I can't. I don't think I can do even open
Yeah.
water swimming. But today, both of those activities are means of cross training for me.
Okay.
Therefore, it's hard for me to pursue a goal of. I mean, of course, it's on my bucket list to perhaps do a triathlon attempt sometime in my life, but
Sure.
it consumes so much of your time and bandwidth because all these three activities requires it's just not one activity, these are three activities, so
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
need to require, and it's also skill, right? I mean, swimming is perhaps my weakest point, so
Yeah.
I have to unlearn and then learn. So both of these two activities are today a means of cross training.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now I'm just at it right now. I'm kind of not exploring it beyond because I also don't have the bandwidth to do more.
Yeah. I did a triathlon this year. I did a
Oh,
sprint
wow.
triathlon. I'm pretty good at running and biking, but swimming has always been my weakest. So I'm still trying to work on that. And this year, I'm planning to do an Olympic distance triathlon and a half Ironman. And hopefully by 2025, I want to do a full Ironman. So,
Oh, brilliant. Good
yeah,
luck for that. That's
thank you.
brilliant. Maybe I can learn from you and trade notes with you.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to. So, nutrition is one of the most important part in training or being healthy and everything, right? What kind of nutrition do you follow?
Yeah, look, yeah, but I think nutrition is a very underrated topic when it comes to both staying healthy and also exploring your performance limit from an endurance science point of view.
Right.
Most people, and for the longest time, I also was of that school of thought. Since you're burning a lot, you could just put anything into your body. But I think that doesn't
I
go
did that
well.
so many years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's a common rookie mistake
Mistake.
what
Yeah.
a lot of beginners do. Like I said, I myself was doing that, and also because there was no one to guide me. And I then realized that it's not doing any good to me. Rather, it was doing harm to me because my recovery
Exactly.
was going for a toss, and I was not getting ready enough to go back and again train hard. So today, nutrition, like I said, is a means for me to A, of course, stay healthy. B, to recover well. So if I am able
Right.
to recover well, I can go and perform well. A lot of people confuse this that if they eat XYZ, they can just go run fast, or they can just
Yeah.
race fast. But it's the other way around. Only if you can recover well, you can train hard, or you can race hard. So recovery has to be a primary goal. And then you can get into specifics. Look, everyone has got a very different metabolism. Everyone has a very different body type. So I don't think there's one for all template that if this has a work for me, this should work for everyone. In
Yeah.
fact, there are so many different principles around nutrition. Low carb, mid carb, high carb, high protein. There's so much. So I would recommend that A, first someone understands and acknowledges that nutrition is important. B,
Right.
try to also learn the basics. Most often it's a very underrated topic, like I said, because people is never taught to us. I don't know
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
the US system, but at least to a large part in India, uh, nutrition is not taught in schools or college or even inside your family, right? I mean, you just been told that just eat this, that's good for you, but you don't know why it's good for you. So I
Exactly.
think it's never too late to kind of understand more from a first principles that what is nutrition, uh, what could be good for you. You got to experiment it, and then you could, of course, seek out expert guidance when if you think that it is not going your way, and perhaps you have done experiments and it's not working in your favor, and you need someone to guide you, and then you should seek out guidance, because it cannot be an ignored topic. Like I said, it's a fundamental to your overall performance. So for me, I don't want to influence by saying what works for me, because it might be construed as opinion. So, but I largely look
True.
at off season and on season training, and within on
Okay.
season, base building and peak and tapering. So there are again three components to it, and then nutrition largely will modulate depending on what is my base training, what is my peak training, and then during the tapering and closer to the race. So all those aspects would modulate, because my body weight is changing, my intensity is evolving, my calorie intake is evolving, so a lot of this, and then I do few blood markers to understand if I'm deficient on something, so I'll have to complement it by getting very specific nutrition into my body. So
Right.
that's how I look at nutrition.
Gotcha. That's so true. And I really liked one of your recent posts where you said nutrition should be a subject for the kids. And that's so true, because a lot of the, even to be honest, I legitimately came to know about nutrition just 2 or 3 years ago. I've been exercising since I was like 10 years old, you know? And at the time, my knowledge about nutrition was very limited. You are at the tech entrepreneur level, right? How does running help you stay focused and active throughout the day? How does endurance sports in general help you take those critical decisions at work?
Oh no, that's a very good question. So I think see, there's a lot of parallel between endurance sports and life in general, or perhaps any aspect of life, be that business or family, uh, anything, right? So I think the most commonality is not just in running, but any sport you play it kind of defines and builds a character of a person.
Right. Yeah.
And then most importantly, it is helping you reimagine and reinvent yourself. So as you grow old, you try to carry a lot of baggage with yourself of knowing a lot in life. And I say that becomes also a liability because you feel very static to say that you know everything in life, and you're
Yeah.
not very keen to unlearn yourself. Now, when you go out and throw yourself into a situation where you're again a fresher, um, it it will ground it will make you feel grounded, and it also make you humble because suddenly you feel at a point of life that you're nothing,
Right.
right? And sometimes you're irrelevant to
Exactly.
what you're doing. So it allows you to learn new aspects of life, and then because of that learning, it also changes a lot in a lot of outlook to what you do in the other side of your life. Right. So, yeah, so that has been my biggest takeaway of if I had to draw a parallel between running and life in general or work in general, because
Okay.
it had allowed me to appreciate time management, well. It has allowed me to understand the benefit of compounding. As you
Okay.
compound on your health, you get returns, and that's how everything is in life. It has also taught me a lot around grit and determination, right? Because you suddenly start doing something afresh and you see outcome and progress in small milestone. It just goes to say that that's exactly how everything is in life. And more importantly, it has allowed me to stay patient and have that perseverance in whatever you do, because endurance sport is all about that. I mean, you got to be
Exactly.
patient. If you're running a marathon, a 26 mile, 42-kilometer race, you just cannot go at a pace from kilometer one as if the race is going to finish in few kilometers, right? You have to be very
Yeah.
patient. You have to persevere. You have to endure the pain. So I think doing a marathon itself is, in some way, uh, you know, reimagining yourself, reinventing yourself, and learning a new life. There's so much of story in doing that distance. So yeah, I think I'm very thankful, to and have a lot of gratitude to everyone who has cheered for me and kind of help me do what I do. A lot of takeaways for me from between running and endurance to life in general.
Very true. I agree with you because endurance sports has also made a huge impact on my life, both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Coming down to your side projects, one of the two famous ones that at least I'm very attracted towards. One is the your podcast, the other side. Another one is your 10 MB, the quick 10-minute breakfast tips. What made you
Okay.
start these projects and how is it going?
Oh yeah. So look, I mean, I love doing side projects because I
Yeah.
feel, it's also I think it's underrated, and everyone should have some side projects at any given point of time, no matter what you do in life, because it just allows you to explore your other side. Each one of us has another side in life,
Yeah.
and we often uh, forget forget it, or we are forgotten as we kind of pursue aspirations in life in a singular way,
Right.
and just it gives a balance to your life. Right? So that has been my philosophy for all my growing up years. I've always
Okay.
had some side project. I'm tinkering with something. Just the meaning side project itself means that it's just a side project. You're not putting all your time and bandwidth, and you just leave it at it and see where it goes. If it's turning up well, it could turn out to be something meaningful, or else you just scrap it and then move on to the next project. So that's been my approach, and 10 MB in particular again started off just like a random personal
Okay.
pet project that at my home between me and my wife. we were struggling to eat healthy breakfast because breakfast was the most
Yeah.
ignored meal of the day.
Yes.
Everyone, especially the working population who goes to office, ignores it the most, right? Because they just rush it up and
Yeah.
they just eat something random from outside, or mostly surviving on toast, or anything random.
Like
So
cereal, I
uh,
think.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think so that, I mean, it was our problem also, and we thought, why is it so? And then we started thinking from first principles that why can't it be simplified? Because this is, in fact, the most important meal of your the entire day,
Exactly.
right? If science says that that's the important meal, how can it be the most ignored meal? So that was our kind of thinking, and we started working backwards to say that, all right, so everyone has a hard stop. They want to rush to their meetings or their office or the commute. So what can you do to make it very easy to prepare, healthy with all nutrients, if not
Right.
all, but most nutrients, and more importantly, something which you can cook by yourself, and something which is available in your kitchen in your home. So that was the framework we had, and we started experimenting few things. And this was just recipes. My wife was kind of figuring it
Right.
out. Sometimes off the internet. Sometimes she was kind of uh, experimenting something which she read somewhere, and giving her twist on that.
Okay.
So things were working for us, and then we started sharing it few friends, because we realized our problem was also not very rare. It was a common problem amongst a lot of people
Yeah.
around us. So we just started off like that, and then before we knew, uh, more and more people started asking, hey, why don't you send us also that recipe? So
Yeah.
it started off more like a newsletter stuff. Every day morning we would send out our recipe. I mean, just like a side project, like I said, there's no cost attached.
Yeah.
There's no monetary or anything. We were just shooting out an email every morning saying that, hey, this is the
That's so sweet.
recipe breakfast for the day. And 10 MB essentially means 10-minute breakfast. So our goal was that, hey, you can prepare this meal with inside 10 minutes. And we were dead serious about it, because we used to clock it that it has to be 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
it would still have, you know, most nutrition what you should get, a
Right.
healthy version, right? So yeah, so that was a side project, and then I think it kind of picked up from there, and it went a bit on social media. It was doing some rounds on social media, but then after a point, I think as life comes in, we kind of
Yes.
got
Like.
consumed in few. I mean, we got
Yeah.
dragged in some other projects, and that kind of went to the back burner. So that was about 10 MB. And I mean, I think on Instagram, if people still go and search for your 10 MB, they can still find a lot of that recipes which people were using, and they were posting it by themselves. So that's one. The podcast thing, again, like I said, it's my current side project. It's because I firmly believe, like I said in the beginning, that everyone has a other side to themselves. So my curiosity to understand what is the other side of certain individuals who
Right.
are doing good in some aspects of life, and because mostly we talk to them on a singular identity. Whether you're a business person or an entrepreneur or whatever, them because of that identity. But
Correct.
there is always there is the other side of it. Like, for example, you might be working in a tech company, but then you are also a runner. A lot what you do as a runner also anchors your identity, the primary identity, that is, you're an engineer, right? So that's so that way that was my curiosity, and I just started talking to a bunch of people, and I realized that, hey, these could be conversation. We could you just kind of open source and put it out there in public,
Exactly. That's so
and it
inspiring.
just yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. So that was there. I mean, it was not from my intent that a lot should happen, but yeah. So that was just the starting point. It turned out, I think, fairly okay. I love the fact when a lot of people send me feedback about what they're doing. They're liking it. So yeah, I think the other side is the podcast name. It's out there in all most of the podcast platforms and on YouTube. So yeah, so I'm just having fun doing that now.
Sure. And who is listening, please go check out The Other Side with Dilip. It's a beautiful podcast, very inspiring, very motivating, and you'll get to know the other side of all these elite tech guys.
Yeah, thank you for the plug.
Yeah. And how do you get time to do all of this?
No, like I said, I mean, you got to explore. I mean, that's my other side, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I'm just trying to see what more I can do,
Yeah.
and how much I can do. So you got to find time. I mean, I think it's a misnomer in some way where people say that they don't have time.
Yeah.
People do have time if they are genuinely interested to, be curious. So I mean, it's a curiosity project for me, and yeah, I mean, I wish if I could just tell you there's a certain framework or toolkit to it, but I
Yeah.
think just staying curious and to know more helps. So you got to find time, and like I said, I'm just having fun doing this. If it gets boring, then perhaps I'll definitely stop it because that's my only kind of guardrail that I should
Yeah.
only do till the time I'm having fun.
And then want another one.
So yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't think finding time is as much a problem, but yeah, having fun is also more important.
Understood. Yeah, that's so true. You have helped many startups in the field such as fintech, digital health, education, fitness tech, and currently you're kind of helping Rainmatter Health build a team over there. You're an endurance athlete. We just spoke about the other projects that you're working on. What are your next goals from here?
Oh, wow, I mean, that's a very loaded question. So look, I mean, my only primary goal is always to remain curious. I just want that sorry, that bit not to be not to die in from me, and not, I mean, just to stay in me, that I should remain curious because that's what makes me do a lot things what I do. um, yeah, I mean, no specific goals as such. I just want to remain curious in life, to know more, and I think till the time I remain being that, I could perhaps keep trying new stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think just staying curious is something which I would, you know, probably is my goal.
Understood. Well, it was so nice talking to you. Thank you for taking time and coming onto my show. I wish you luck with all your ventures, and I hope you continue to inspire everyone around you.
Hey, no, Pradeep, thank you very much for your kind words. Pleasure to having spent this time. Thank you for having me on the podcast, and good luck to everyone who is listening in anything and everything what they do in life. You're doing a great job by having these conversations, and good luck to you as well. And I look forward to listening and catching up more on your updates.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
Thank you so much for taking time and listening to this episode. And I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a review from where you're streaming from. Share my show with your friends. And I hope I was able to entertain you. Thank you for tuning in to the Active Hour podcast. And until next time, be ambitious, exercise every single day, eat nutrient dense foods, and stay active.